So that's interesting that you talk about like how they were relating to each other, the things that Brandon, I guess the things they were both saying to and about each other. So I did have a few question marks. I don't know if it was me being nitpicky, but some phrases that stuck out to me were when Michelle was asked what she likes about Brandon, she said, "I like that I never had to question his feelings." And to me, like, that's positive. Like, obviously there's nothing negative about that, but that's not a
personality trait.
Yeah, like that's just like a fact, you know, like that's just like what are your thoughts on that? Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, I definitely picked it up on Rodney when Rodney's mom asked about what she sees in Rodney, and she like there was like that pause, and I'm like, oh. And so she said playful, and like that was the point, like the one feature that she would highlight with each of the men was different for each of the men. But it like I think that also was an indicator too about maybe where she is and how she responds to them when they say I'm falling in love with you.
Yeah,
I think that's also like she told Nate she was falling in love with him, like jumping ahead.
She told Nate she was tumbling down the hill for him.
But like I think her feelings right now are the strongest for Nate, if I would have to say. But I think thinking long term about how this is going to be outside of this bubble, I think that's where I think Brandon has a stronger shot of her working, because he's there. He's gonna love, and he's gonna love with his whole heart. And while Nate, this is his first time him saying like he feeling these feelings, and that may be a turnoff and make her reconsider, is this something I really want to pursue outside of this, because he's not there, and I don't know what that'll look like for me in the look like for us in the long term versus Brandon. He's there, and I know he's gonna love,
right,
man, and all that stuff. So I feel like that's where I see Nate and Brandon being final two, and where she would be considering and weighing her options between the two of them.
And I agree with Nate. I agree with your analysis. Nate is kind of like a question mark, and Brandon is 100%. He's been there. Do you think that Michelle is just as there as Brandon is?
I think he loves her, or he would be more in love with her than she is with him.
Yeah.
If she chooses him at the end, I think he would be more in love with her than she is with him. That doesn't mean that she can't get there and they can't match the same energy. But I think in terms of her saying that like in previous relationships, she gives more than she gets, this is a completely new turnaround. And I'm not saying like the other men don't give to her too, but Brandon will give and give and give. It's the way energy is versus the other men. And maybe that's like, you know, you fall into things that are a bit comfortable or a bit familiar, and that may be kind of like, she may not know how to handle, or that's what you always wanted, but it's different when you actually get it, you know?
Right. And do you think that's positive in a relationship? Like if one partner is more in love with the other, do you think that's like okay to start a relationship on that foot?
I think it may be okay as long as it doesn't stay that way.
Yeah. Do you think it will stay that way if she were to?
No, I don't think it would stay that way. I think she would eventually match his energy too. I think it seems like they're both people that when they fall in love, they are committed to that person. They're doing everything for that person. I just think maybe at the end of this process, just because she's in other relationships, she may not be where he is at that moment, but doesn't mean she can't get there.
Right. Interesting. I hear everything you're saying. I don't know where I land on any of the questions I just asked you, but yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from with all that. The other thing that stuck out to me, and this is again really nitpicky, was when the mom asked Michelle like where she is, how she's feeling about everything. She said, and I think this is going back to how you were describing their different levels of feeling to each other, but she said, I love who he is as a person. And to me, that could just be me like being a grammar nerd, like picking apart syntax, but that to me does not sound like
English. You always like English back in school, so
yes, I know. You know. Yeah, I'm always looking at how people like actually say things, because words mean things. Like she's not saying like that's not the same thing to me as being like I'm in love with that person. Saying I love who he is. I love who Drake is. I don't know him. I'm not in love with him, but I love who he is as a person. You know what I mean? Like I feel like different.
Yeah. And the only thing I can maybe chalk that up to is that, like, you know, we in these previous seasons, we've had bachelors and bachelorettes like be like, oh, I'm in love with you, and say it to multiple people, and everyone's like, oh, what?
Yeah.
What? I feel like it's easier and more acceptable nowadays for the bachelor bachelorette to say, I'm falling in love with you, and or I have strong feelings for you, versus I'm in love with you. That is.
So you think it's more of like a bachelor card that she's.
Yeah, I think, but it's not the, like, you know, the Matt James, like him being like.
Anything that came out of Matt James' mouth was aggravating.
So at least I think also she's trying to keep that in mind for herself about how she felt. Look, like when she was saying that stuff to Matt James, and then he wasn't giving her. He
just was so not engaged.
So she's trying to be like, oh, I hear you, I feel you, I appreciate you in the way that she can, without maybe, especially if she doesn't feel that way at that time, or maybe just being a little guarded because she's trying to see how things play out. And I also feel like maybe because it's just hometowns and you're trying to see how all this stuff plays out, you don't want to reveal all your cards. Because I feel like towards the end, before the rose ceremony, she said, like, I thought I was going to come in and get clarity. And it seemed like she was saying she didn't get the clarity that she necessarily wanted, but she had made her decision. So I don't know what specific thing she was trying to look for that she didn't get out of. I think she wanted to clear, like, yeah, this is a reason why it wouldn't work. She didn't get that. And that's why I think it was so hard for who got sent home. But somebody had to go home.